Good morning. We're holding on Ayin Chesamid Beis, second line from the top. Ben Shar min b'minai kimin b'sheina minai. It's the second line. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. Supposed to be learning. We should have the basic English immediately. Just want to say happy birthday to my mother. She's on sometimes. She learns with us sometimes, but I see she's not on yet. There are some ladies that do the daf. Okay. So let's see. We were learning about the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that holds that min b'mina is leibatal, right? One type with its same type that gets mixed in is not going to be nullified. So, for example, blood of a carbon that gets mixed in with other blood, we say that it doesn't become nullified. Then we had a discussion about something that was introduced by Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says that if you take 3 pieces of meat and each one is prohibited for a different reason, one of them is pigel, one of them is nicer, and one of them is tamei. Pigel is the thoughts of by the sacrifice were incorrect, was out of the allotted time, or the meat was left over, or the meat is tummy, and you eat them. He says you can't get malchus for that because one of those pieces is going to be bottle in the other two while you're swallowing it. It's going to be nullified. One of them is going to be a minority during the swallowing. It can't both be the majority of it. So one of them is going to be the minority of the kazayas that's being swallowed. So when we're giving the hasra, giving the warning, you won't be able to say which one it really is, because you don't know which one is going to be. That was Rish Lakish's din. And in that din, he also said, in this we learned 3 things. One of them is that isurim could be mevatel one another, not just heter, not just something that's permissible can nullify something else, but even something that's prohibited can nullify another thing that's prohibited. We also learned that the flavor that something gives is not a biblical law. We say that it's nullified even if it gives it, it's not a biblical law. Okay, anyway, Rava says that we have a source that the flavor is a biblical law. So we answered that it depends if it's min b'minai or min b'sheina minai. The same taste, it's not a biblical law. So in other words, one piece of meat giving a flavor into another piece of meat which tastes the same, we say that it's going to be batal b'roiv, nullified in majority. You don't need 60 times it. But if it's going to be the flavor and something else in a different type, not the same flavor, 2 flavors that are mixing, then that flavor is going to be recognizable. That's going to be a daraisa. That's what Rava comes out with. Now, going back to Rabbi Yehuda, going back to the Mishnah where we discussed if something could be batal, like blood could be batal in other blood. So the Gemara asks, "V'nashar min b'minai, min b'sheina minai." Let us be strict, and we should say that just like we find in the Mishnah, that we had a case where blood was mixed into water. And we said, well, if you still see the blood, then it's going to be considered blood, and if you don't see the blood, then it's going to be. If you don't see the blood, then we're going to consider it nullified.
Zu gesund, zu leben, zu wachsen, zu parnassen.
Oh, thanks. So the question now is that Rava was just made a difference between if it's the same type or a different type. So we learned before let's take a look. The Tanan. We learned in the Mishnah. Nisarev b'yayin. If blood gets mixed with wine. Now they look exactly the same. Right? Nisarev b'yayin. And you can't tell that it's blood because it looks like the wine. You can't tell the mixture. So Rayan I say kilo mayim. My love, Rayan I say liyayin kilo mayim. What we do is we imagine that the wine is water. Remember the rule when blood mixes into water? If you can tell that it's there, then it's considered blood. And if you can't tell, so then we say that it's bottled, that it's that you can't use it for sprinkling. Now we have a similar case. We have a case where you have min b'minai, the same types that got mixed together. We said it should be batal b'rov. We said, why do we do that? Why don't we behave in a strict way and imagine that the same type, what would it be if it would be a different type? It wouldn't be batal until there was 60 times, until the flavor was gone. Just like we do by the blood that mixes with wine. We say, let's imagine that the wine is water, right? We don't just say that it's automatically kosher because everything looks like blood. We don't say that. We earn. See, the first opinion here before we got to Yud holds ein dam mevatel dam. And before that we had you see when we mix wine with water, we had a possibility of saying that if there's more water than the wine, it should be batel. I'm sorry, not wine with water. We mix blood with when we mix blood with other blood or with wine, right? So we could have said that let's look at the majority. We don't say let's look at the majority. We say I don't care that there's more chulin blood or there's more wine here. We imagine that the wine is water, and then the blood would still be in existence. It's less. We make it less batal, right? How do we make it less batal? By imagining that the type that it's mixed into is not what it is. We imagine that it's something else. So now we want what Rava is suggesting, or the Gemara is suggesting, that when I have a mixture of the same type, normally we say it's batal b'rov, nullified in majority. Why don't we do the same thing what we did with the blood, and we imagine that the mixture that it's mixed into is something different, and then it shouldn't be batal so quickly, just b'rov. We should say that it's not batal until it gives a flavor, exactly what we did with the wine. We say, imagine that the wine was water.
You imagine that because the wine is red and water is white, so
No, the reason why we do that is because the wine is red and the water is white. That's the reason why we do it. And now we can see how effective the blood is into the wine. We imagine that the red wine is really white, really water, and would the blood still be effective if it would be something else? If the wine would be, we imagine, if the red wine would be water, would there be a color of blood in this? And if there would be, so then we say that it's not batal. So now what we should do is we should imagine that the flavor that's coming from this meat, that's going into the other meat, imagine that the other meat is not meat. Imagine that it's something else. Imagine that it's potatoes. And if it would be potatoes, it would be getting a flavor from the meat, so we should say it's not batal. That's the Gemara's question. As we see that we do by the wine. Okay, so the Gemara answers an interesting answer. It's a little bit surprising. The Gemara says, well, first of all, in the Mishnah that we quoted, that we imagine as if it's water, we made an assumption that we're talking about, what do you imagine that it's water? You imagine that the wine that the blood got mixed into is water. The Gemara says, "La, you got it wrong. You're not imagining that you got the two parts of a solution. One is like the solvent and one is the solvent. There's two parts to the thing, and we're not imagining that the wine is water. We're imagining that the blood is water. What does it mean the blood's water? Blood's water means that it's finished, that he can't use it. Which means that it's automatically possible. Umar says, Yachi batal mi baile. Why don't you just say the word batal? Why do you have to come up with imaginations? If you want to say it's possible, say that, or batal, say that it's just batal. But another question that we can have on this is Tanya. We have a brisa that says, let's say there's a bucket that's tummy, and in the bucket is water.
Two examples, like bucket of water that is getting the drops of blood that would never become, because every drop would become
Nullified, right?
nullified. We had the other one where it would take strength. But
The Rabbi Huda's opinion. That was Rabbi Huda's opinion. That blood of blood strengthens. It's not Rabbi Huda's opinion. We were just talking about. We're just talking about, if there's a mixture of blood with water. And then in that we said, let's say there's a mixture of blood with wine. Or blood with other blood. Not Rabbi Huda's opinion. Rabbi Huda's opinion was that it's never bottled. But the other opinion said that you have to view it as if it's water. So we're saying, we view what as if it's water? So we thought that we're talking about, you view the wine or the mundane blood as if it's water. Where it says, no, we view the blood, the holy blood, sacrifice blood as if it's water, which means that it's not eligible. The Gemara says that's surprising. We should have used a different term. And now the Gemara has another question. It says that if you have a bucket that's tummy, now in the bucket would be water. So what you would do is you would immerse it in the mikveh, and the water, once water's it's called kiss, shaka. Once the water's touched, you see, it then becomes purified. Normally, you can't take a food that became tamei and put it in the mikveh. You can't purify food in a mikveh. You can only purify vessels in a mikveh. Food that became tamei is tamei. It's finished. There's no solution to it. The vessels that become tamei, you can put them in the mikveh. What about water? So water is different than food because water becomes one with the mikveh, and it joins and it becomes all purified. So let's say there wasn't water in the bucket. Let's say in the bucket, let's say there was white wine or milk. That when it goes into the water, it just all looks like water. So what do? Does it become purified? So you see, if the majority is the white wine, then we're not going to say that it's purified because you can't purify food. But if the majority is water, then we're just going to say that it's all water. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, we're going to do a strict opinion over here. We're going to say that the white wine, we're going to imagine that it's red wine. And imdeya mareyu kasher. If you can't tell that it's the red wine because the color was so diluted that you can't tell, then it's going to be fine. We're going to consider it water. Then it's going to be puzzle. Okay. What do we see from this? Another example of rayim that you imagine. Instead of just saying that there's the majority, we imagine that it's something else. And if it's still recognizable in that imagination, we would say that it's not going to be batal. So we're asking another question. You just got rid of the Gemara just got rid of the rayim from our Mishnah. We said that the rayim in the Mishnah, when it says rayim means like you view it as if, which means imagination. You imagine that it's something else and see if it would still be recognizable. So we got rid of it by saying that what are you imagining? Not the solution, not the part that it was mixed into. You're not imagining that. You're imagining what got mixed in. That's how we answered it. We said, yeah, but we have another source where we say that you imagine what it is that it's getting mixed into. And what are you going to do about that? So the Gemara answers, it's not a problem because Tanaihi, it's machlekes Tanaim. So the the places where you're going to find where we say Rayim, we say you imagine, that's going to be just specifically one opinion, the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, which we're going to say. But our opinion over here is the opinion of the Rabbanan, who don't say Rayim. So you're asking a kasha from another opinion on this opinion. They argue. It's not a problem. So the Gemara says, Tanai, it's a machlekes Tanaim. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Oh, 1 second. I messed this up. I read the wrong brisa. I messed it up. Let me do this again. I have a brisa Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Marayna Sekilo Yayin Edom. You imagine that the wine, that the white wine is considered red wine, right? Imdeya Marikashim Apostle. Because now the Gemara says Tanahi. The Tanya was started by I read the Machlekes Tanaim without that there is another opinion in that brisa. The first opinion says that you follow the majority. The second opinion says if it's diluted, then we say if the appearance of the imaginary red wine would have been diluted, then we say that it's going to be tar. Bimlav pasal. Now the Gemara challenges and says, does Rabbi Yehuda really hold this? For a mini, I have a problem. It says Deli Shehumali Reikin. If I have a bucket that's full of spit, we don't have these buckets anymore. It used to be something called a spittoon, right? Tobacco, so called a spittoon.
Also, like tasting wine, they spit it out.
Oh yeah, they do. They're for wine. Okay, we do have it. Yeah. They spit out the wine. That's right. It has like a little lip on it, like to catch when you feed it. Anyway, only other place you have that is in the dentist office. So, okay. So let's say you have a bucket that has in it spit. Now, this problem with the spit is that if it's coming from someone that's a zav, so then all the fluids of a zav, a man that had a not natural emission, like that's impurity, whatever it is, gonorrhea or something, or that type of impurity. So then all the fluids that come from him, even if it's spit, are going to be impure. So the lisha malirakin, you have a bucket that's full of the spit, and you put it into the mikveh. It's not. It's as if it didn't go in the mikveh. And the problem is because the spit is a chatzitza. It interposes between the water of the mikveh and the vessel because of it's thicker. Meiraglayim. Let's say inside the bucket was urine, because it's stuck to it, so it's considered a chatzitza. It separates between meiraglayim. Let's say it's urine. Then urine is considered water. That's different. Brian Isikile Mayim. We view it just like water. And
so it's more like phlegm, the other one?
Yeah, the other one would be phlegm, right? Even though it may the urine may look a little different, but no, we consider it like water. And then what happens with water? The water is touched, and then everything becomes pure, and it's not a problem. Mali mechatas. Okay, now the mechatas. Mechatas is the water from the paraduma, which is clearly water. The only thing is that it's considered chashuv. It's considered important, and if we don't say that it's batal. It has ash, but it still looks like water. So we say like this: Ad sheyir bo hamayim al mechatas. Over here, we don't just say that it's automatically water. We say we need majority water over the mechatas for this to be considered immersed entirely. Okay, now man shamat le disle royan. One of the things that we did in this Mishnah here is we said that you imagine that the urine is considered water. Who holds that you do royan? Rabbi Yehuda. Say it's Rabbi Yehuda. Uktani, in the same Mishnah, we said the Sagile Baruba. We said that when it came to the Mechatas, to the water of the Paraduma, we say that a majority was enough. Why didn't we say that you should imagine that it's wine, red wine, right? Why don't we say Ryan over there? It's all liquid. No, it's the water. It's the water that has ash in it. So, Amar Abaya. Abaya says like Kasha. You're asking a question because Rabbi Yehuda says Royim over in one place, but over here he doesn't say Royim. So it says Amar Abaya like Kasha ha didei hadarabe. What we're going to do over here is we're going to say that there's two opinions that are coming from Rabbi Yehuda. One, Rabbi Yehuda is telling us what his teacher held, and then Rabbi Yehuda is telling us what he himself held. What his teacher held, let's take a look. Titania, Rabbi Yehuda, Mishum Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of his teacher, Ein dam mevatel dam, that blood can't nullify other blood, right? It's min b'minei le'batel. And also, Ein reik mevatel reik. If there would be spit in the same spittle, in the same bucket, we would say one spittle came from someone that was tamei, a zav. Other spittle came from people that were tar, right? It was at that one event, right? So one person over there was tamei. We say that it's the same type, it's the same thing. It doesn't become batal. Vein meraglayim, mevatel meraglayim, and urine won't be mevatel other urine the same. So according to this opinion. No, we have in other places Hadidei Hadurabe that sometimes when he was saying over in his teacher, but that's not his opinion. Maybe that other teachers, maybe. So this is what he said over in the name of one teacher, and he said it over. He was passing on information. How does this answer our question? So let's go back. We had Ryan. We said that Rabbi Yehuda says Ryan. Ryan Isakibu Yayin Adam, right? So we said there's a machlaikas. One opinion says Ryan, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't say Ryan. And we had a contradiction where Rabbi Yehuda himself doesn't say Ryan. So we said the concept of Ryan maybe would just be his teacher's view. Yeah. Because Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Ram Gamliel that Ein Dam Mevatel Dam. So the same way that Rabbi Gamliel holds that min b'mina ein batal, he would also be machmer by min b'she'ena minai. For example, white wine, we would also say that it's not batal. We would imagine that it would be red wine. The Rashi says, "Ki heche de machmer b'min b'minai v'amalei batal klal min b'she'ena min nami is the islay de batal kaimalan b'kaimalei kolzman shemaria mut nikabrei le batal machmer nami v'amar deich de mariam shavin the Ryan Isakilo Adam le sagile brew." And that's Rashi on the top. Rashi says that we're going to imagine that it's the other type, even if it's going to be white wine, we're going to imagine that it's red wine and it's not going to be batal. Okay, that's the opinion of Abaya, how to resolve the contradiction in Rabbi Yehuda. Rava says a different teretz. Really, there's no machlekes here between Rabbi Yehuda and his teacher, Rabbi Gamliel. Really, everyone's going to hold that we had a question that why would he say everyone's going to say Rayim? And the question that why did we say by the Mechatas that if you have the majority of the bucket was water, that it was going to be enough? It says Rav Amar Bidli Sheteiche Tar V'Gabi Tami Askinan. It was a special case. You can't compare. That was a special case. That case was talking about where the outside of the bucket was tummy, the inside of the bucket was tar. How does the outside become tummy and the inside tummy and the inside tar? It's talking about where the outside of the bucket became tummy with the rabbinic impurity that comes from liquid, tumas mashkin. Normally, if someone tummy touches a keli, the keli becomes tummy. Here we're talking about it wasn't someone that was tummy; it was the tumah of liquid, and we said that certain liquids would give off tumah, and this liquid touched the bucket, and it touched on the outside. So here we have a special rabbinic type of impurity where the outside of a bucket could become tummy, the inside not. So once it's immersed in the mikveh, it's already tar, the outside. We don't need to purify the inside. We purify the inside just for extra precaution. So we say like this. We're talking about the inside was pure, the outside was impure. Really, it would have been fine as long as any water goes in, as long as it's covered over. I don't need to purify the inside. The Rabbanan say that you have to immerse it properly, because maybe you're not going to immerse it properly. You're not going to immerse the entire vessel. So therefore we said that it has to go inside and it has to keep in the karuba leitzarech. Once there's a majority, then we're fine. So in other words, the way Rava resolves it is by saying what's called an ukimta. We're dealing with a unique case. This would not be in every case. In this unique case, we say that it's batal b'roiv. In every other case, we would say that it would rayin, we would view it as if it's red wine, and then it won't be nullified. Yeah. Yeah, that's the rabbinic law of the mashkin, tumas mashkin. Okay. No, by itself, it's a biblical impurity. Tumas mashkin was a rabbinic impurity. Amar Rava. It's a famous Gemara for those that learned Yeridea. Amar Rava says, Amar Rabbanan b'taima, that there's certain times where the sages said that in order for something to become nullified, we're on 79a. Certain times when something to become nullified, you have to see if it gives a taste, which means that you get an expert to taste it. Food maven, right? Okay. It's not a Jew. They get a non-Jew to taste it.
We're from France.
And then Amar Rabbanan Beruba. Then there's certain times where we say that it's majority, doesn't have to do with taste. Amar Rabbanan Bechazusa. And there's some times where the sages said that it has to do with the color or appearance, and that would be enough. Min b'sheinim mina, Rav explains. Min b'sheinim mina, if it's one type with another type, it's meat with potatoes that got mixed in b'taima. You have to taste the potatoes after you took out the meat, and you see if it has the non-kosher taste, if it has the flavor of the meat. Min b'mina, let's say it's two types of meat, two types of potatoes that got mixed in, and you can't taste it. So then it's going to be kambatal beruba. Eicha dekachazusa, if it's something that has to do with the color, like we said about the water in the mikveh, over there, if it has the right color, if it has the color of water, then we're going to view it as all as water, mikveh water. So then it's bemara, then it's we go after the color, the appearance. Pliga de Rabbi Lazar. And what we said, okay, now Pliga de Rabbi Lazar goes back on Rish Lakish. It's like a new piece of the Gemara here. Rish Lakish said that if you take 3 pieces of meat, each one has a prohibition on it, and you eat it together, Rish Lakish says you can't get malchus, because you don't know which one was the majority while you were eating it. And so therefore, when he was warned, he wasn't able to be warned for the actual prohibition. Rabbi Lazar doesn't say that. Amar Rabbi Lazar says, Kshem shein mitzvahs mevatle suasu. Just like mitzvahs can't nullify one another, also prohibitions can't nullify one another. So therefore, all 3 prohibitions are going to be you're going to get 3 times malchus instead of 0 times malchus. Man shamet leidamar ein mitzvahs mevatel zuasu. Who's the opinion that says, like Rebbe Lazar was saying, that mitzvahs don't nullify one another? Guess who? Hillel. It's Hillel. The Tanya. So in a brayso, Amro Laval Hillel Zakein was said about Hillel the elder. According to Reish Lakish, that says that if you eat 3 pieces of meat, each one you're swallowing this with that. There's with someone. One of them is going to be majority. The other one's going to be batal. According to him, you're not going to be yaitze kairach, because what happens by kairach? You take matzah and marar and the korban pesach and you eat it together. According to Reish Lakish, you're really not eating it. You're not. One of them is going to be batal. According to Rebbe Lazar, according to Hillel, Hillel says, "Ein mitzvahs mevatle zuasu." The mitzvahs don't nullify one another.
Why would it be batal? This min shebein aminu.
Oh, that's a good point. Rashi says that the flavor of the marar would be so strong it would nullify the flavor.
Oh.
The matzah. Yeah. Okay. Why not? Because mitzvahs are not batal. Maybe. We have sandwiches in the Gemara, other places. We have someone had a sandwich with oats or something, and they said, "Oh, the foolish Babylonians, they eat their bread together with other bread, like a bread sandwich." Okay, Taner Rabbanan, third in a brisa. Carson, and we're on top of Ayin Testament base. Carson shel zav v'sava. This is talking about a chamber pot that broke. So it was used for urine, and it was used for urine of a zav or a zava. Now you have these broken pieces, and question is if you can get the not the smell, but if you can get the urine out of these pieces, out of these clay pieces. So pam rishena v'sheni tamei. You see the urine of the fluids of a zav is tamei. So what about these pieces that absorb the urine? So if you wash it once or twice, it's still tamei. We say that the urine is still inside it. Shlishi, by the 3rd time we say it's tar. When do we say this? How were you washing it? You were using other urine to wash it. I'm sorry. That's if you used water to wash it. But if instead of using water, you used other urine, in other words, urine from a person that wasn't tamei. So then, afilu asiri tamei, then even the 10th one is going to be tamei. Now, who would say that? That would be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. We'll see in a moment. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, "Shlishi af bishul nasan seichem mayim tar." Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, no. The 3rd time that it's being washed, the 3rd cycle, right? 3rd cycle on the washing machine would for sure purify it, even if what's going through it is other urine. Man shamat leidamar min b'mina lebatal. Who's the opinion that says that the same type doesn't nullify? That's Rabbi Yehuda. It's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. But we have a contradiction. Contradiction is, it says in somewhere else. Where is this? Pishtan. This is a Tosefta in Taras. It says Pishtan shetavate nida. Flax that was being spun by a woman that's a nida. So there's no problem there because once it's cloth, then it would become tamei. But there is a secondary problem. Second issue here is that when they spin flax, they put spit on it. Now the fluids of a nida is also tamei. So Masitai tahar. Someone else that touches it is not going to become tummy because the spit that went on it is dry. The spit that's dry doesn't make impure. Imayalach, but if the spit was wet, or if the flax was wet, then we assume that the spit was there. Then mesita is going to be tamei mishamash kapia because of the spit that the fluids of her mouth. Rabbi Yehuda says afaroitvai b'mayim tamei mishamash kapia. Even if someone makes the flax wet later and then touches it, because the dry spit comes back to being wet, and it's going to make them tamei. Afilu tuva, even if there's a lot. Problem is that we said that 3 times before, if it was using water, we said would purify it, right? It was only Rabbi Yehuda said only other spit, other urine wouldn't purify it. But if it would be water, it would purify it. Now we're saying that you're taking water and you're washing off the flax. Even a lot of it's not going to get purified. So why not? It's a contradiction, right? Amarav Papa Shani Reik Dekar. Well, this is different. This is the spit that gets inside. It gets absorbed. It's hard to get it out. Okay. Spit was different. Yeah. Yeah. I guess what it means is, yeah, the question is if it's going to come out, if more is going to come out maybe afterwards. We say that whatever came out, whatever stuck is stuck. Nisar b'dam psulim yishafech lama. We go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that if there's a blood of a sacrifice that got mixed in with other blood of another sacrifice that wasn't allowed, that was invalid, blood from a let's say it was an animal that a sin was committed with. So, and then the Mishnah went on. It gave us other cases. It says, let's say it got mixed in with the appropriate blood that's supposed to be used for sprinkling is the blood that comes out by the slaughtering. The blood that gets drained out afterwards, so is not eligible to be sprinkled. But let's say the appropriate blood got mixed in with what's called dam tamtis, the other blood that oozes out. So the rule over there was that you let it wash down the drain. So over here also in the Sabbath you let it get washed down the drain. But my kamifliki. Now, what was the machlekes? Rabbi Eliezer says that it was fine. Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah said that it was fine. What's the machlekes? Rav Zvid said begoizrin gzeira b'mikdash kamifliki. The thing is like this. Do we make decrees in the temple that would invalidate sacrifices? So Mar Savar, the first opinion holds. Mar Savar Goizrin, Tanakama. First opinion holds that you do make a gzera. That's why we say that it's invalid and you have to let it wash down the drain. Mar Savar Goizrin. The second opinion, which is Rabbi Eliezer, says that it's not a problem. We don't make a gzera. Now, Rashi adds in. If you go back to the Mishnah, we only said this by cases of dam psulim. We didn't say this with other blood. We said the first. It's interesting. The first case of the Mishnah is dam that got mixed in with water. We look at it as if it's if you still see the color. What happens with dam that got mixed in with dam behema, a bedam chaya? Also, you view it as if it's water, right? It doesn't still have the color. When it came to dam tamtis or dam psulim, it says no. Over there already, you wash it down the drain. Why don't we do the same thing as we did before? Let's view it as if it's water. Here, automatically wash it down the drain. Why do we say this? So this opinion says the Tanakhama's opinion is that since it's very uncommon for there to be animals in the temple that were not karbanas. So over there, I'm not worried about. There's no gzeira. But since this is more frequent for there to be animals in the temple, this is an animal that was invalid, or for the other blood that's in the sacrifice animal that's not eligible, that would be very common. There's a lot of that blood that's hanging around. So there, I have to make a decree that if the blood's mixed together, you may think that it's more common. It may end up happening that you may end up using that. So therefore, we make a decree. It automatically has to get washed down the drain. Rabbi Lezer says we don't make that decree. We view it as if it's just like the other bloods. How much water? If it would be water, would it still give a? Okay, that was the opinion of Rav Zvid. Rav Papa Amar. Rav Papa says the Kuli Alma Geizrin. Everyone holds that we make decrees. Here the question is it common for there to be the secondary blood would be more than the blood that's eligible? Is that common? Now what Rav Papa is doing is he's dividing the words of the Mishnah into two categories, which we weren't doing with Rav Zvid. Now we're saying is Nisarev b'dam psulim yishafich la'ama. B'dam atamtzis yishafich la'ama. So he's saying that in Rebbe Lezer machshir. Now, what's Rebbe Lezer machshir on? Is he being machshir on the dam psulim, or is he only being machshir? Is only allowing the dam tamtzis? Dam psulim is blood of the invalid sacrifice, and dam tamtzis is the blood that's not the eligible blood for the sprinkling of the same animal. No, you don't need, when it comes to sprinkling, you don't need 51%, right? We said that even 1 drop would be good. But over here, that's if it was, right? Remember, you took blood from all the sacrifices and you sprinkled it and it was fine.
It's allowed.
When it's allowed to be sprinkled, or allowed to be when you pour it down the drain. When you pour it down the drain, yeah, but we have a concern that you may end up thinking that blood is eligible. That's our gezeira. Gezeira is you may end up using this blood. If you say that you can use it in the mixture, you may end up using it. You're using it alone. So, but according to Rav Papa, we're not talking about dam psul. No, machlekes is only on the dam tamtzis. Now, why is there a machlekes by the dam tamtzis? Because how much dam tamtzis is there? So that's a machlekes. Is it the dam tamtzis motzil rabasal dam nefesh kamef? Gemara sabashchiach. One says that it's common for the dam tamtzis to be, the Tanakama holds, the dam tamtzis to be more than the regular blood, and therefore it would nullify the other blood. Other one says that it's not common for that to happen. What happens? Yeah, the question is that why do we say that the majority nullifies it? No, I guess if it's all sacrifices, remember we said that you could take all the mixed sacrifices and sprinkle it. But over here, that it's not eligible, then that would actually nullify it. Over there, all of them were eligible to be sprinkled, so it didn't nullify it. But over here, where one is not eligible, so then it would nullify it. You're right, Ella. Okay, so now the Gemara now explains. Rav Papa. According to Rav Papa, we can understand why the Mishnah divided into two cases. Because the machlekes is only on the second one, and that's why if you have a list of items that have the same law, you don't have to say the same law by each one. You can say the list and say the law at the end. Whether it's this, whether it's that, whether it's this, and at the end you say what the law is. Why over here did it divide the two cases and say the law by each case? So according to Rav Papa, we understand, because the machlekes was only by the second case. The first case everyone agrees to. According to Rav Zvid, that says the machlekes is by both cases. The question is, do you make a gzeira? And that the gzeira would apply to both cases. So the Gemara says kasha. That's a question. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
Okay, we're holding by the Mishnah.
I knew you were going to stop.
Did Reb Naftali respond?
Shkoyach.